Welcome to Off the Record with my guest today, Karlee Perez. Some of you may know her as Katrina on Lucha Underground, but she is more than just the Queen of Death on El Rey Network's Lucha Underground. She's also an actress and a model. And Karlee, we're glad to have you here in St. Louis. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And so let's talk about the mid-season premiere of Lucha Underground because it's coming up soon, May 31st. And when we left off, there's been some questions people have been asking about your character, Katrina, and how she's interwoven into almost every story on the show. And how exciting is it for you to play such a character that is such heavily involved in what happens?
It's really been a blessing. It's been great watching this show evolve and grow into something that probably most people weren't expecting it to. And as the character Katrina, I just ran with it. I tried to bring as much as I could in diversity, and luckily I was allowed to. Krista Joseph and the rest of the writers and the team, took in consideration my ideas and what I was comfortable with, which pretty much I like to take chances and risks, which is part of what made Katrina, I feel, come about so much and be different than what you usually typically see in a show like that, or if you ever see a show like that. But
And so, 3 seasons in, how much have you grown with Katrina? Like, how much have you, in your experience, have taken away from that role?
And I'm sure the fans can tell. Like by season 2, like I felt like I really grounded with the character. Season 1, everybody's trying to feel themselves out and whatever their character and story may be that they're trying to tell. And then by season 2, I was like, all right, I have to own this. And I started the season running the temple, so I really wanted her to be strong and grounded and fearless and in your face, without being over the top. Sometimes the silence that the character gives, if you notice, I think she yelled once in the season,
Yeah.
Like it just stays very like this, which to me is much more of a mystery.
And just talking about the future of Lucha Underground, season 4 hasn't been picked up yet. There's no word yet.
Right.
But if it were to continue, what do you think would be the next evolution for Katrina, your character?
We can really go anywhere with this character. She's not done, It just seems like she's definitely on a power control trip going here and forward. I think you're going to see more diversity, maybe even more of the background of her, why she is the way she is. And that will start to explain probably more of the stories that are coming about.
And moving on from Lucha Underground and more into your acting, when was it that you kind of knew you wanted to be an entertainer?
An entertainer in general, or
let's say general.
Okay, because me going into the acting world, I've always loved entertainment. I didn't know I was going to be in entertainment growing up, but I always loved it. And then when I finally got the opportunity to be in WWE and work alongside, some amazing talent and people there, I really took to the acting side and the character side of the wrestling world because of Dusty Rhodes, who was my mentor from day one of me stepping foot into there. So he would come aside. We have promo days that we do weekly, and he would always pull me aside and was just like, you need to do more. Like you have an untouched talent here, and you need to own it and figure out how to utilize it. And he pushed and pushed and pushed for me to do that. And thankfully, I'm He did, because I didn't see it until he pushed it on me. And then I really was like, I do want to make whatever gift and talent I had, I wanted to make it the best I could possibly make it. But he gave me the confidence to do that. So I knew that back in my FCW days. And a crazy story, which I've yet to tell this story, is...
Exclusive.
This is exclusive. Dusty and I used to sit and watch movies and talk about characters and films and storylines, and we both had that passion, which it's grown so much more for me in the wrestling industry, which I feel like it's lacked for so long. But Dusty's favorite movie is Shawshank Redemption.
It's a great movie.
It's a great movie, and he always talked about it, and it was just because he knew it by heart.
Yeah.
He could just quote it off just like that. So over years of me pushing and learning more about the acting world, and learning about castings and learning about auditions and really getting into scripts and characters and digging into it, I just finished a feature film called Nations Fire. And I co-starred alongside Gil Bellows, who is the guy in Shawshank Redemption. So I almost felt like it did a full circle for me in some weird emotional way, where once I put the pieces together, I was like, oh my gosh, my mentor, Dusty's the love of my life. My mentor, who believed in me from the start, who said, go and fly and go, you need to go do this. And my hard work, I'm not done yet, but I end up co-starring in a feature film with Gil Bellows, who was my mentor's favorite film and his favorite character in the film. So it was a very touching, cool moment for me to be able to, and I shared that with Gil. Gil's been in the industry I picked his brain since he was 18 years old, and he's an Emmy-winning actor. I also am alongside Bruce Dern, who's anybody who doesn't know, he is a Hollywood classic actor. Yeah. He's been up for two Oscar nominations. But it's just been incredible. When I told Gil the story, I couldn't wait to share with him that, my mentor, you were top of the list, and you're in Shawshank, and now I'm here with you doing a film with you. I just felt that was really touching for me. Almost felt like it was planned out or something. Like
he's still kind of watching over you, still guiding you.
It was out of all the people in the world you can end up with, and that's who I ended up with. So I thought that was pretty cool.
And let's talk about your acting process, because I know coming from WWE, you took promo classes, and then coming out to Hollywood, LA, I would imagine that you continued working on acting, taking acting classes. So what were some things that you probably took away from those lessons?
I've worked with some amazing teachers, and worked alongside some people who were top in their class at Juilliard and NYC and some of the best acting schools or programs you could be in. But I'll tell you what, I learned more from Dusty's promo classes than not that I didn't learn from these people. You take from everybody you can who has more experience than you. But my first rock and building point came from him, from those promo classes and the improv classes, and just, I guess the confidence of doing it first is really important, because when you're standing in a room with 2-3 people staring at you, and you have to be vulnerable and open, and it takes a certain type of personality to be able to do that in front of complete strangers, depending on the character that you're portraying and how deep you really want to go into it. So I tend to want to go really deep into everything I do. So in that my first year heavy into pursuing acting, I was a little intimidated, and it brought me back to my first year of starting wrestling. You know, going into something new that is highly competitive, or people may not take you in with open arms at the beginning, and you may not know the full history of it. And you have to learn. You have to learn everything from scratch, and work your way up the ranks and earn that. And I had to do that in the wrestling world. So in my mind, I could do it in this world, because the wrestling world is not, it's not easy, but what I would recommend for anybody, and what I learned worked for me, was trying to figure out what makes you stand out and be different. And while most of people in the wrestling world we have some of the most gifted, talented athletes in the world. These guys and girls are amazing. I tend to concentrate more on the character aspect of it, where I saw most people were concentrating more on the in-ring work. So that, to me, there was less concentration, less trail over here. So why not? If you happen to be good at that, that's what was going to make me different. And that's what I did. I wanted to be able to tell a story through my words and my facials and my body language and my acting, and bring characters to life and become a good worker inside a ring as well, which I feel I've done both.
Yeah.
And that collided back into my acting career. It made me prepare and be ready for what I was stepping into. And that first year was pretty intimidating and rough. And now I'm going into my third year of heavily pursuing, and now doors are opening for me that I never thought would open for me. But once again, persistence and hard work, it will happen. All of a sudden, 4, 5 years, 6 years goes by, and you're like, whoa, how did I get here? And you have to remember where you started.
And how did you, that first, I guess, when you were discovered for the very first time by, was it WWE?
Yeah.
How did that come along? Because I know you weren't, like,
WWE was through a mutual family friend who actually brought in Victoria, Alicia Fox, Kelly. He brought in a lot of the females for WWE. He brought me in. They liked my multi-ethnic, I think, look to start.
Yeah.
I'm Spanish, Cuban, Italian, Hawaiian, Chinese, so I think they wanted like a little mixture there. And you know how WWE is. They'll give, like if you can get in the door, you're going to be given a chance, but you got to squindle through the cracks and corners. I started in FCW, which was, now NXT, so to say. They're developmental. I came up with the Sheamuses, the, Derek Bateman's, EC3 now, Curtis. All the people that are there now that are doing great were the people I was able to come up with. And the opportunity came about. They asked me if I wanted to try out, and I did. And that was it. I was offered a contract about a week and a half later.
And the one thing I noticed, and we talked about this earlier, was that watching NXT and watching you, I noticed that you were trying to do a lot of character things.
Yeah.
And you said that for some reason you didn't like that, and it worked because it had people, because there wasn't at that time a lot of you could take away from NXT, but then you would, there's like, well, Maxine is doing something with Curtis and Derek,
yeah.
And it was interesting, and it was like, where did this come from? And like, what was it that made you want to say, this is what I want to do? Like, just focus more on the character.
It clicked, I stopped trying to fight on trying to go with the grain, and I stopped fighting my own instincts and just trying to fit in with everybody else, and and did what Dusty pushed me to do. The minute I accepted that, the easier for me it was to understand that this is probably the path that's best for me. And then once I started working on the character stuff in NXT, and ideas would just go into my head like nonstop. I was like, okay, I don't know if everybody's like this. I'm not. I don't know if it doesn't make me any more special than anybody else, but it's just that my mind worked better that way, and I might as well utilize it.
Yeah.
I was still pretty fresh, even a few years into the NXT. I would sit and write, and I would write promos and ideas, and we played with that in NXT in those days, because NXT, we were the start of NXT, so our stories were is what branched it, but they didn't get, the fans got behind it, but people didn't really understand if you go back and look now, there's some really good stuff in there. Which I go back and laugh and watch at times, but that definitely helped me. It's all been a journey process to where I am now and where I'm going. So I've appreciated the fact that I had the opportunity to do that. I just wasn't fully satisfied. I wasn't being able to flourish the way I knew I could, which I've had the opportunity to do that in Lucha Underground. And I'm still not done there, but it's just really just still at the beginning, middle stages for me. Yeah.
And I want to talk about maybe like your like little Karlee, how did you ever imagine that you would want to be an entertainer? Because I've doing research, you were in law, or you did something in law?
I wanted to be a PI at one point. I thought I always wanted to be a cop, and I always stuck with that.
Yeah.
And then I went into started studying private investigating. I went to school for criminology. I was at the state attorney's office before I started wrestling, and I'm not sure where that was going, but there's a reason that I got out. There's a reason I went into entertainment. And then once I started entertainment, it was just, okay, this is what I want to do, but what can I do outside of this niche that I learned in the wrestling world? So yeah, I think the entertainment part was always in me as a little girl. I was always around the camera. My mother was a beautiful model. She was Miss Hawaii, Miss Kawasaki. She then opened up a photography studio, and she always had me around cameras. So I was comfortable, growing up. Sometimes life makes you think you have to do the safe choices, which is, go to college, get a degree. And there's nothing wrong with those things. Those things are great.
Not at all.
But there's some rebel people some souls that are pulled outside of that aren't really satisfied with that, and they're more of the artistic souls. So once I got a little taste of that kind of stuck with me, so I had to stick with that.
Yeah, and just, I guess, advice that you would have for anyone trying to not only get into acting, but just entertainment in general, because I know your persistence, obviously, but it takes a while. It takes years.
It takes time.
It's not easy.
And there are no overnight anything in anything.
Yeah.
It's not. If it happens, that's like 1 in a billion, if that, anybody you look up to or watch or view, like people I've been able to grow and watch and look up to, it's taken years of work, sometimes decades, of persistence and work. And that's a constant everyday grind. So if you want to pursue something in that world, whether it's athletes or musicians or actor or wrestler, whatever it is, it takes time. And if you're not willing to put in the time, it's never going to happen. And that's it's simple. And you have to have a backbone. You have to be able to stick up for yourself. I truly believe in that. I'm not, you have to know the difference between ego and just being loyal to yourself. There's a difference. You have to be able to balance that. I'm not one to let people walk all over me. But when I was probably in my early 20s, sometimes I would, it would be unbalanced because I felt I knew my worth, but I hadn't quite grown into it yet. So sometimes your ego and your loyalty to yourself can get in the way. But I recommend you got to be tough. You got to be tough. You got to be able to tell people to F off sometimes. You got to be able to stick to your guns, and you have to own what you say. So you have to follow through. And if you tell yourself you're going to do something, you got to do it. And that's me leaving WWE to pursue another career. I didn't stop after a year. I didn't stop after 2 years. I'm not stopping after 3 years. I'm not stopping. I said I was going to do it. I'm doing it. And it is paying off, and I am doing it. And now I can see the payoff. And there are times, when I was down, I'd wonder if I made the right decision or if I would have stuck through. But there was a reason that my instincts told me to leave and pursue this. So I'm glad. I'm happy. It's a longer process.
Yeah.
But the longer process is sometimes the better process.
Yeah. I mean, I've always felt that way too, because I always feel like artists always have to, it's almost like a rite of passage to kind of like have those lulls of like, is this worth it? And then
if you don't go through that, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
You're going to go through, if you're truly pursuing something that is difficult and hard and a small percent of people succeed in, you're going to have a lot, probably more downs than ups. But you have to truly get up every single day and attack it. And there's going to be days that you just don't want to do anything and days that you just want to go backwards. I don't like to be stuck in a comfort zone. I like to be pushed and pulled and be uncomfortable, because that means I'm doing something that's moving me forward and I'm not staying stagnant.
Yeah. And what were some of these, or if you remember like a specific moment where you felt like maybe you had made the wrong decision?
Just moments when I've been down, where it was like moments in my career where I was pursuing this, and I've been told no a million times, but I've been told yes just enough. So after a few no's, if you don't have the confidence, or people try to beat down your own confidence with yourself, you can start to be like, oh, no, did I make the wrong decision? But you have to go back and remember why you made those decisions in the first place, and have faith in that, you made those decisions for a reason, and whatever told you to do that, it told you for a reason. And in those moments I've thought what do I do now? Did I make a huge mistake that's going to change, the whole career of my life? And then when I felt like everything kept pulling me back to the wrestling world, which I love and I'm very passionate about. Because when Lucha came, that was the most random thing ever. It was the most random call I got. Krista Joseph called me and said, listen, I didn't try out. I didn't have to. I'm glad that he believed in me to that point. They just offered it to me. We have a role, Katrina, I think you'd be great for. What do you think? That was pretty much it. And when he said, Robert Rodriguez, I was like, I'm in. Robert Rodriguez, he's an amazing director. If anybody doesn't know who he is, I suggest that you go do your research, because he's incredible. And when they explained the concept of it, and it was wrestling, but it's a TV show that has wrestling in it, and I'm like, okay, this could be interesting. I know this part of the business, and if I'm able to really expand on this other side as a character, and really, for the first time in the wrestling world, try something totally different that fans have never seen before, and also hopefully be the strong female character that maybe they haven't seen in who knows how long. I want to do that, Yeah. And they agreed. They said, listen, we want to use you as as a character worker. So, and I'm like, great. And we did. And that's when things started to, in my mind, somehow things were colliding together. It's like I can do both.
Yeah.
I can do two things I really love and still expand in both areas. I'm learning every day. You get to work with more and more talented people in the wrestling world, and now I get to be side by side with some amazing actors in the acting world and learn from them and pick their brains. So it's been really cool.
And how fun is it, just the collaboration? Because I know with WWE, there's more of a, this is what we want you to do. You can maybe tweak it a bit, and there's not really collaboration compared to with, like you said, Lucha Underground, where you kind of get to like really kind of give your character a backstory, even for yourself, like as an actress, like you can. No,
it's great. You get to put some meat into it.
Yeah.
Which to me, the meat of a character is what sells the character, is what gets the audience behind it. The audience wants, you have to make them feel something. When you watch a movie, when you watch a TV show, whatever character, you may leave there really loving one specific character because that one character made you feel, whether it was emotional or happy or funny. And some people just are able to stand out in that way. I have a lot of actors and actresses that I like. One of my favorite actors, though, is Benicio del Toro.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to say anything. And I feel him, when I watch him. If you're able to do that, wrestling doesn't just have to be about wrestling. There are some amazing, talented wrestlers who can do that in the ring without doing one move. And to me, anyone could, if you just let down your walls and really are in touch with your own shit that you've gone through in your life and your own meat and emotions, and you can think of things, how to do things outside the box a little bit. And Katrina, I wanted to take some risks, which is where the lick of death came from, which I saw a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people jump on board starting to lick people in different promotions and companies, and all of a sudden people are just licking people, and I'm like, you know what? It's more of a compliment for me. But it was like, I wanted her to be different and be kind of edgy and a risk taker, and not so much, you don't have to be the nice girl or be the perky, pretty one or be the smiley one. I wanted her to be just, have some meat to her.
And isn't it crazy, though, just to think that, like, the lick of death obviously is, like, what people remember sometimes, but it's not this overtly sexual thing. It's almost like this dominant thing. It doesn't come off sexual at all.
It comes, so for you, like, it can be taken however it is taken from each individual person. As long as they're remembering and they're feeling something, I did my job. It is more of a dominant thing. I didn't want it to come off as like a porn star thing. There's nothing wrong with that, guys, but I'm just not my ideal. I wanted it to be a strong, dominating thing, and I had to own that. Like, you can't do that lick half-assed. Like, you gotta, like, go in for the kill. So it's not like it's in your eyes. Like, if I'm going to do that to somebody and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so nasty, and I'm like halfway like it wouldn't be the same.
It wouldn't work.
I had to own it every single time and make it more of a dominating thing. But even if it comes off as a sexual thing, I'm still, that is part of the dominating thing. It all kind of goes in together, Some people may think it's totally disgusting, but I'm making you feel something. Some people may think it's hot. I'm making you feel something. Whatever it is you're feeling, it's working, you know. And that was Krista Joseph. Was like, all right, let's do it. And that was it. And it could have not have gotten over. It could have not worked. It could have come off really cheesy and bad, but luckily I got the fans behind me, and it did work.
Yeah, and like when you were speaking of like presence, and like one of your favorite is Benicio del Toro. Like, I feel like Katrina and I feel like you as a person do have that presence. Like, just walking into the room and it's like, oh, Karlee's here. Like you have this presence about you, and I would imagine with having that presence also means that you've kind of grown into your confidence, like, because it takes a while.
It does take a while. It does take a while. Yeah, you almost, even in my nervous times, like if I've been uncomfortable with this, sometimes it's hard for me to, that took time. The confidence grew to where it's very difficult for me to even feel uncomfortable in situations or be nervous in some situations. But I used to like be overly confident when I was nervous. And I think you like can train your brain to get accustomed to like that, whatever you tell yourself over and over again. You know, like Katrina, I wanted her to pop off the screen and ooze that out without saying a word. And that's kind of what I try to go into in my mind when the camera's on. And I stay in that, like out by the ring, wherever I'm doing. I try to always stay in that, no matter, even if the camera's not on me. And that's like a 101 to me. When you're in entertainment or you're working, you don't get out of character, whatever it is that you're portraying. You own that the entire time because there's somebody who always is watching. I felt like what was lacking sometimes in the business is people portray these characters, and then as soon as they're in the ring or they're doing something, they forget what actually their character would be doing at that moment. They go back to them. And when they're wrestling, they go moving again like they would move instead of like the way their character would move. There's small things like that, you got to think about.
Yeah.
Katrina doesn't rush anything. She does it very slowly. She walks very slow, like methodical. Everything's like planned out in her mind. So I try to own that and stay in that character the entire time.
Yeah. And just again with the dominating part of the character as well, she has control over, like, Mil Muertes as a character, and that's not a small man by any means.
Nope.
And it's like he's huge, and to see a woman kind of take control of a situation like we've seen on television many times with you and Mil Muertes, it's refreshing to see. Kind of like he's not the focus, she is, but it's almost like watching a movie, and like you kind of know who's really pulling the strings, and once that twist comes, that's when you kind of get the satisfaction of all of that. Yeah,
it's a good story between us too, even though like it's good teamwork.
Yeah.
We don't outshine each other. We both know each other's roles, and there isn't one trying to overkill the other one. We work well together. You know, to be able to make it believable that a woman could dominate a man like that. Once again, that confidence has to ooze out of you. It's got to be in your eyes almost, you know. So, because he is a big guy, you know, and you can't back down, and you're the authority in her voice and the way she carries herself, the way she looks at him and talks to him. Like you have to, and it has to be the same.
Yeah.
You know, and then one day it could turn, you know, and then you see a whole nother side of Katrina. You know, what happens if one day it turns and Mil over dominates Katrina? Yeah, like anything could happen.
Who are some of your favorite actors right now that you kind of take inspiration from? Not even now, maybe growing up.
There's so many times. Female-wise, well, first off, I tend to, like I said, Benicio del Toro is a great one for me. Some of the more masculine tendencies, I feel like sometimes I have. Yeah. When it comes to my characters and stuff, which is fine. I'm not gonna go against that either. I'm gonna try to work with it. But some of the female actresses who I feel who I look up to, because it's to be feminine and masculine at the same time it's a thing. It's not like the easiest thing done. But some of the women, like Charlize Theron, who I feel can pull it off very well. Angelina Jolie back in the day too, when she did Girl Interrupted and Gia. I don't know if anybody's seen those movies, but
Girl
they're
Interrupted,
amazing.
yeah, that's...
Gia's amazing. Gia was a big breakout role for her, so you should watch it. It's based on the true story of a famous model who had a drug problem, but she was really edgy in that movie, and she did it. It was an incredible movie. Those are some of the female ones, but there's so many, like there's so much television now, so many series, that there's so many really talented people I've been able to see, new people. So
Yeah, and so I guess whenever you're taking that inspiration from them, or you're kind of noticing things, like what are some things that you notice? Because acting is, I've been told acting is more reaction than it is, sometimes reaction more than it is trying to find the right words, thought. And then there's more people put a thought into what they're going to do, more reactionary.
more naturally reacting to what's, yeah, I don't know if there's any, it's kind of the same thing with like wrestling, you know, everybody has their own way. I don't know, there's no right or wrong way. If it comes off authentic and people believe you in the moment and you're coming off that way, then that works for you. Yeah, reaction is definitely a big part, you know, a natural reaction. You're, instead of being in your head, some of the biggest things to start with in both worlds is being in your head. If you're in your head too much when you're in the ring, you start to overthink things. If you're in your head too much when you're doing a scene, it's not going to come off authentic or natural, because you're too busy worried about, oh, what's my line? What am I going to say? What do I look like? You know, whatever it is that you're in your head about, you have to just kind of let go and be real about it.
And I think we spoke about this yesterday, but like you want to go after more roles that maybe aren't like the roles you would typically get. So like you don't want to be typecast.
Yes. Right.
And so we were talking about something. I'm not sure if we can say what the character is or the role.
We can. We can say, yeah. I'm on hold. I'm up right now, whether I get it or not. Let's hope I do. I'm up right now on hold for a pretty heavy character. She's she's a lesbian,
Mm-hmm.
and her girlfriend falls in love with a married man. And I won't go into like full details, but it's a pretty emotional roller coaster for the character and something like that. And when the audition came up and I did it and I got a call back and I had a director's meeting, and when I read the whole script, it was very intriguing to me because it's something different. It's not just the badass girl or, you know, the attractive or whatever it is that, you know, you can be typecasted for. It would be, to me, that would be really cool and intriguing to play something that I'm not in real life, and to tap into like those emotions and see what that's like, you know. And that's what actors fall in love with.
Yeah.
I believe, is doing something that they've never done before. That's what makes it interesting.
And I would imagine you also learn something in the process of doing a role like that, because like you said, you know, that character isn't someone you particularly are, and I would imagine just living someone else's life is also kind of like intriguing for an actor, just kind of to see.
It definitely is. You know, everybody takes it differently. Some people go out there and truly live the life and feel what that's like. They go and live in the streets. They go and study where that character came from, if that character was written, you know, about somebody in particular, or if it was a true story. And that's why some of the best in the world are people who, you know, really allow all of that in to themselves so they can portray it the best of their ability. But I'm able to do that, you know. I'm not really Katrina, you know, in real
Yeah.
life. So I'm able to do that with that character, and in my mind, how she would be and how she would walk and talk, and what kind of woman would this mystical character be, you know, because it's not like I walk around on a day-to-day basis with a rock, you know, with big guy behind me following me and just
Licking people.
licking
just
people. So that was great, you know, and now, yeah, it's time to expand. I was able to expand on the movie I just did. Although I did play the villain, which is great. I'm all about it. Next to Bill Bellows, who was the villain as well. I was his right-hand man in this movie. It was super cool to be next to him, and just it's unbelievable to be able to do scenes next to somebody, you know, that my mentor loved, you know, and sit there and be like, wow, I got myself here, you know, like I did this during persistence and hard work. Now I can really start to see the labor I've put in and grow. And yeah, I want to start touching different characters than what people have seen me do, and show that I have depth, that I can go back and forth to different things, you know. So this role would be cool to take on. It films in New York, so I'm excited, waiting to hear back about that one.
And I think we would be excited to watch you in a movie too. And
Yeah.
And Nations Fire.
Nations Fire will be out 2018.
2018.
Yeah.
So we gotta wait another year.
And there's some really cool names involved, like the most random, diverse group of talent. Like Chuck Liddell's in there. You know, Lou Ferrigno Jr. His son. Like, there's just some most random. You know, like I said, you have Oscar nominee actors to like. This is the most random people. Half the cast of like Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
You know.
Are you a big Sons of Anarchy fan?
Oh yeah, I
Did you watch it?
love Sons of Anarchy. I'm very close with well, I've gotten I see him now every day, and we've gotten to be very good good friends. As Ron Perlman, the father.
Yeah.
So we bust each other's chops every day at the gym, and we do a lot of signings together. And he's another amazing actor. I grew up watching, and it's great to pick his brain as well. And a lot of the Sons of Anarchy guys are in this film, so it was cool to do. I got to do a lot of scenes with them. It was cool to be like, oh man, I got so into that show,
Yeah.
and I'm standing here playing this bad girl next to these guys.
Yeah.
You know, that was
You almost feel like a part of the biker gang.
yeah,
now.
yeah. I could have done Sons. I could have been that biker girl. You know?
Yeah, and how crazy it is now that you're like on these sets with like people that you're watching on television and movies. Like for me right now, like just sitting with you is like, oh my God, this is awesome. So I would imagine for you, like getting to work with these actors is like mind blowing.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. It's incredible. It's a great learning lesson. What is even more meaningful to me is when people like Gil, after we did a scene, comes up to me and he goes, "You're great." He goes, I feel you in the scene. I love your energy. You're awesome." And I'm like, whew. That man's worked with, you know, Morgan Freeman to, you know, John Travolta. I mean, you name it. And you're telling me, I'm like, oh my God, okay. You know, so that makes it that much more meaningful for me, knowing that I have my peers respect what I've grown into and what I've done, even though I came from a different background than them. And I look at we can't forget The Rock, obviously.
Yeah.
I look at someone like Dwayne, who's done. He's a mega superstar. He is the superstar right now in Hollywood, especially action star.
I feel like he has a movie every other month. Like,
yeah, he's great,
Yeah.
and his personality is great. He has a great look. But that did not happen overnight. I think people forget that.
Yeah.
How long it's been, a decade of him working through that. You know, starting. What was it, The Mummy?
the Scorpion King?
Scorpion King?
Yeah.
He's done a lot. He's
Yeah.
done a lot since then. And I've yet to see a woman do it.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day. And
I've yet to see a woman do this. So, you know, we've had very many talented women who've come out of the wrestling industry. And then we have these men who have tapped over, such as Dwayne, such as Batista. You know, I actually saw an article, I just saw it a couple of days ago, and it was written about WWE, or like wrestlers, WWE take over Hollywood, and they went down the list of people who've made an impact in Hollywood. On the list, it was all men. And I actually wrote an email to the writer, and it was a nice email, but I'm like, it was all men. And I'm like, well, what about the women?
Yeah.
What about the women who are putting in the time and the work and have to go through the same process as the men do? He's like, it wasn't meant to be sexist or anything.
Yeah.
And I go, I'm sure it wasn't, but maybe go and research some of the women who are doing it. And I don't need the credit. There's lots of women in the industry who are trying to touch into other things, who are coming out. And growing in the business still. And a lot of the women went and did reality shows, and those are successful, and women are opening, up different like clothing and lines and this and that, and it should be pointed out, and I just happened to go this route, and I'm not done, and I'm going to keep going, and I didn't want to do reality. I didn't want to do I wanted to do film and television, like some meaty stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what I love, and so it is. It's been really cool to be on set with some of these people, and the whole audition process is pretty intense.
And
So
talk to us about your first audition.
my very first audition.
Very first audition.
Oh man. My very first in-person audition. So like now you can audition on tape, right? You could be anywhere in the world and put yourself on tape. And there's like a correct way to do that. So I had to learn all that. That was a process too. Now I can audition like this, but it was like the lighting, the camera frame, there's a way to do it. And my very first in-person audition, I got called in from off a tape, was for Ray Donovan, and it was a series regular role, and I had to do a chemistry read, and I was in Los Angeles, and a chemistry read is when you read with the other actor that you would be in the scene with. I don't know if you guys are Ray Donovan fans, but mine was with the brother, Ray Donovan's brother, and he's a great guy. And I had to read for the, directors and with him, and that was pretty, like, it's like, okay, I got that. I got this far, now we got to finish this, We got very close to that role. They gave the role to somebody else, which is fine, but it's still, my agent's like, you're getting in these doors, and you're getting so close. You just have to keep at it. Auditions, you can get in your head once again, and you can psych yourself out, and you could be an actor for years. I have friends who've been in the industry for a long time that I try to take and learn from, and they psych themselves out still. And I'm like, you've been acting for 10, 12 years, but you get in your head. And I was so nervous during that audition, and I had it down.
Yeah.
Like it was in the bag, but I was still very, very nervous to do it. So I was psyching myself out for a minute, and I had to get my confidence back. And that happens during auditions. Some you go into and you're like, I own this, and other ones you're like so worried about like one word or one line that you start to psych yourself out. It's a process. It's an emotional process for an actor.
I mean, I find it funny too that the ones that you are overly confident about are the ones that you never get.
Yeah, I know. It's like the one,
And the one where you worry, it's like, hey, you got the part.
Yeah, the ones you worry are the ones you spoof on. You spoof a line, and it's like, oh yeah, you're perfect for it.
Yeah.
This one, the one I just landed for Nations Fire, I read for. I did my audition in person, and then I got a callback. So pretty much a callback is when they go through all the auditions, thousands or however many people. It's like thousands of people are auditioning for these roles. And they go down to like their top picks, top 3, top 4, and then they do a callback. So when you make it to that, you're in the 1%. You know, you're at the top of the list. I got a call back for that, and I read for the director, Thomas Churchill, and the casting, and they put me on hold. They loved me, and the role was a biker girl. She was a badass, and I didn't get the role. And then a month later, they called my team up, my representation. They're like, listen, you know, we really, really like Karlee. We want to work with her. We loved her audition. We want to offer this role to her. And they offered me a totally different role that was actually written and made for a African-American male, a big male. Yeah. And they switched it. You know, he's like, I think she'd be perfect for it. So they offered me this role, Jazz, and it was Gil Bellows' right-hand man. Yeah. But I didn't even know Gil was going to be on the project yet. They didn't tell me who I was going to be co-starring with until like right before I started filming. But that's how it works. That was a month later. You know, like, yeah. So they keep you in your mind. If you leave an impression, they always keep you in your minds. And now the director liked working with me. The cast liked working with me. It's already in talks for me doing other projects, features with him, starting more this year in October. So, and that's kind of how you do it. You build your relationships and your confidence and the trust in these people, and you keep going. But I thought that was out. You know, I thought that, okay, I auditioned, I got that close, I'm out, next. But they called a month later. That's how crazy the world and industry is. Yeah. Oh my God, like I can only imagine just waiting by the phone. Oh, it's brutal. I'm waiting right now. Well, it's the weekend. So the weekend, you don't get any calls on the weekends. It's unions, it's Monday through Fridays. Mm-hmm. But, so like if you do something on Friday, then you have to wait all weekend. Yeah. Until Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, which is crazy. And so now we're in the middle of 2017, so it's May. What are you most looking forward to just this upcoming year? I mean, Lucha season 4. You know, let's get some momentum behind that. But for me in my acting career, everything now. Like I feel like I've kicked open a few doors, so now it's get a little momentum and keep going. You have to stay on the bandwagon now. Like, let's get you on that list. Like, we got to keep going. So now that we've have some things under me and behind me, and Lucha's been successful, I'm getting in a lot of doors and getting a lot of different opportunities. So now it's just this year I think will be a very, very good year for me to step outside of the box and be more touched in this world, in the acting world. All right. Well, Karlee, thank you so much for talking to us, coming to St. Louis, and hopefully you enjoy the day while it's still beautiful. Yeah. And just thank you again. Just thank you for coming. Yeah, thank you. All right. Thank you.